There comes a moment in every person's life when they quietly wonder what truly makes them valuable. It's not a question spoken loudly, yet it lingers in the background of every choice, every effort, and every ambition. Most people never discover the real answer because they search in the wrong places. Job titles, promotions, followers, trends, or whatever society decides to glorify at the moment. But genuine value, the kind that makes you unforgettable and impossible to ignore, doesn't come from outside. It comes from a deeper transformation within. Becoming an irreplaceable asset is not a reward someone gives you. It is an identity you sculpt through intention, discipline, and self-mastery. It is not accidental. It does not happen by chance or luck. It is a conscious daily evolution that slowly separates you from the masses who settle for average. It shows in the way you think, the way you approach challenges, the way you carry responsibility, and the way you build yourself, day after day. In today's world, especially in fast-paced environments like the United States, people fall into two categories. Some become commodities, easily replaceable, dependent on instructions, avoiding discomfort, resisting growth. They do what's required, but never more. They survive, but they do not rise. Then there are those who become assets, people whose presence lifts standards, whose actions create solutions, whose mindset radiates strength, clarity, and reliability. These people are not simply better, they are different. Their habits, their choices, and their vision set them apart. This transformation begins with identity. The moment you choose to no longer live as the average version of yourself, something powerful awakens inside you. You stop drifting and start directing. You no longer operate from reaction. You operate from purpose. You begin to see challenges as opportunities, discomfort as training, and discipline as freedom. You no longer compare yourself to others. You compare yourself to your potential. And with that shift, everything in your life begins to align with a new level of value. The mindset of someone irreplaceable is built on depth, ownership, and long-term vision. Depth, because in a world overflowing with noise, very few people think deeply anymore. Irreplaceable people do not chase attention. They attract respect. They are not loud. They are effective. They invest time, effort, and focus into mastering their craft, rather than participating in distractions that lead nowhere. Ownership is the next pillar. While most people run from responsibility, irreplaceable people run toward it. They don't wait for instructions to fix what they can fix. They don't complain about problems. They solve them. They don't distance themselves from challenges. They step into them. This mindset alone makes someone stand out immediately, because reliability is rare and responsibility is powerful. Long-term thinking is the final distinguishing trait. Most people live from dopamine hit to dopamine hit, craving quick results and instant gratification. But anyone who becomes genuinely valuable understands the power of time. They build, refine, improve, and invest with patience. They do the work that compounds. They make decisions with their future self in mind. While others chase the next immediate comfort, they play the long game and win because of it. Another defining shift happens when you choose to create more than you consume. The world is full of people scrolling endlessly, drowning in content, opinions, and entertainment. But the people who rise, who influence, who succeed, are those who produce value. You don't need to be an artist or influencer to create. Every time you solve a problem, guide someone, design a solution, elevate a situation, or refine your skills, you are creating value. And the world always rewards creators over consumers. Your uniqueness is your advantage. You don't become irreplaceable by copying anyone. You become irreplaceable by combining your experiences, your strengths, your character, and your discipline into something that no one else can replicate. Your past becomes your raw material. Your failures become your training ground. Your growth becomes your signature. Irreplaceability isn't about perfection. It's about becoming a refined, powerful version of yourself that is authentic and exceptional. The journey requires courage because you'll need to let go of old patterns, old excuses, and sometimes even old environments. You may outgrow people you once felt close to. You'll have to break habits that keep you comfortable but stagnant. You'll replace temporary pleasures with lasting discipline. You'll take responsibility for your life in ways you never have before. And although this path is difficult, it is also liberating. Because every step you take builds a stronger, sharper version of you. When you begin to operate from this higher identity, the world responds differently. People notice your presence. They trust your integrity. They respect your discipline. They rely on your consistency. They recognize your capability. Opportunities begin to find you. Doors open that once seemed impossible. You stop chasing validation because value starts speaking for you. The truth is simple. The world rewards those who bring uncommon value. And uncommon value comes from uncommon effort, uncommon thinking, and uncommon character. When you do the work others avoid, when you hold yourself to standards others ignore, when you step into responsibility while others step away, you become someone people don't want to lose. You become someone people look up to. You become someone people depend on. You become someone who elevates everyone around them. You become someone the world remembers. You become an irreplaceable asset. Every meaningful transformation begins with a deep understanding of yourself. Before you build anything powerful, you must know the material you're working with. Most people try to improve their lives without ever studying who they really are, what drives them, what holds them back, and what strengths they haven't yet unlocked. They move through life on instinct, emotion, and routine, without ever stopping to ask the fundamental question, who am I becoming? When you examine yourself honestly, you discover the foundation of personal mastery. You realize that the qualities you admire in successful people, discipline, clarity, confidence, resilience, are not gifts they were born with. They are skills they intentionally cultivated, and once you understand that, everything changes. You begin to see your potential not as a distant dream, but as something real, something achievable, something already within reach if you are willing to commit to it. The first step is awareness. Most people spend their lives projecting outward, judging others, comparing themselves with others, reacting to others. But the people who rise above the noise look inward. They become students of their mind, their habits, and their behavior. They identify patterns that hold them back. They identify strengths that can elevate them. They pay attention to how they think, because they know that thoughts shape identity, and identity shapes destiny. This awareness isn't about self-criticism. It's about self-understanding. When you know your weaknesses, you can strengthen them. When you recognize your negative patterns, you can replace them. When you identify your strengths, you can amplify them. Awareness isn't a burden. It's your greatest advantage. It gives you the power to redesign yourself with intention instead of drifting through life on autopilot. Clarity is the next piece of the foundation. Clarity gives direction to your energy. Without it, even the hardest effort leads you nowhere. Many people work endlessly but without intention. They are busy but not productive. They move but they don't progress. They chase goals that don't belong to them. They follow paths chosen for them by society, family, or fear. But true clarity comes when you sit with yourself long enough to ask, what is the life I want to create? What kind of person must I become to live that life? This clarity transforms your decisions. It changes the way you spend your time. It changes the way you spend your attention. It changes the way you choose your environment. When you know what truly matters to you, distractions lose their power. Temptations stop pulling you. Noise stops affecting you. You begin to focus your energy on the few things that elevate you rather than the many things that drain you. Once awareness and clarity take root, purpose begins to emerge. Purpose isn't always a dramatic calling or a grand mission. Sometimes it's simply the direction your life naturally aligns with when you consistently choose growth over stagnation. Purpose grows from your strengths, your experiences, your values, and the impact you want to create. When you live with purpose, even if that purpose is still evolving, you gain a sense of inner power. Your actions feel meaningful. Your days carry intention. From the outside, it looks like discipline. From the inside, it feels like alignment. And this alignment unlocks personal mastery. Mastery isn't about being perfect. It's about continually becoming better. It's about showing up even on the days when motivation is low. It's about improving your habits, refining your mindset, and holding yourself to a standard that isn't dependent on circumstance. Mastery is built through repetition, through the small, consistent actions that compound over time into extraordinary results. People often admire the success of those who have mastered their craft, but they forget the thousands of quiet hours that built that mastery. Consistency becomes your silent strength. It's not about how intensely you start, but how steadily you continue. You don't become irreplaceable by doing great things once. You become irreplaceable by doing good things repeatedly until they become great. A little progress every day, a little learning, a little discipline, a little improvement. This is the formula. It sounds simple, and it is. But the real challenge is commitment. Most people want results quickly. They want transformation without persistence. They want rewards without the patient grind. But the people who actually rise are those who embrace consistency even when nothing seems to be happening yet. Part of mastery also involves understanding your emotional patterns. You cannot grow if your emotions control your choices. When frustration makes you quit, when fear makes you hesitate, when doubt makes you shrink, your potential stays locked away. But when you learn to observe your emotions without surrendering to them, you gain a level of internal freedom that most people never experience. Emotions become signals, not commands. They guide you, but they no longer define you. Self-control becomes one of your greatest assets. It allows you to stay calm under pressure, steady in uncertainty, and grounded in chaos. The world respects people who remain composed when others panic. It trusts those who stay disciplined when others fall apart. And this emotional stability amplifies your value in every environment: work, relationships, leadership, creativity, and personal growth. At the heart of personal mastery lies responsibility. Responsibility is the ultimate catalyst for transformation. The moment you decide that everything in your life, your habits, your results, your growth, your failures, is your responsibility, you gain a level of power most people never access. Responsibility is not about blame. It is about control. When you take responsibility, you stop waiting for external circumstances to change and start changing the one thing you can control completely: yourself. This mindset shifts everything. It eliminates excuses. It neutralizes victimhood. It strengthens discipline. It accelerates progress. Most importantly, it creates a sense of internal ownership that makes you stand out in any setting. People gravitate toward those who take responsibility because they know such people are reliable, trustworthy, and dependable. Reliability is a rare quality, and rare qualities create irreplaceability. As you develop clarity, discipline, emotional intelligence, and responsibility, you begin to build your inner value system. These values act as your internal compass, guiding your decisions even when situations become difficult. Values like integrity, effort, respect, self-control, humility, and resilience shape your identity. They become part of how you think and how you show up. The stronger your values, the stronger your foundation. But mastery also requires self-honesty. You cannot change what you refuse to acknowledge. You must be willing to confront your weaknesses, your fears, your procrastination, your comfort zones, and your patterns of avoidance. Most people avoid this mirror because it's uncomfortable, but discomfort is where transformation begins. The more honest you are with yourself, the more accurately you can direct your growth. Growth is never accidental. It is intentional, and intentional growth requires structure. You begin organizing your life around the person you want to become instead of the person you have been. You design habits that support your future, not your past. You remove distractions that sabotage your progress. You build routines that strengthen your discipline. You learn skills that prepare you for opportunities. You create an environment that pushes you upward rather than holding you back. And slowly, this intentional structure shapes your identity. You evolve into someone who doesn't depend on motivation to take action, because discipline becomes your normal state. You become someone who doesn't fear challenges, because you've built the resilience to handle them. You become someone who doesn't collapse under pressure because you've trained your emotions. You become someone who doesn't wait for permission because you trust your vision. Once this foundation is built, your presence begins to carry weight. People notice the way you operate. They notice your consistency. They notice your composure. They notice the quality of your decisions. They notice that you bring clarity where others bring confusion, effort where others bring excuses, solutions where others bring complaints. Even if no one says it out loud, they feel it. You become someone they rely on. You become someone they respect. You become someone they trust. You become someone they listen to. And eventually, without ever asking for it, you become someone they cannot afford to lose. This is how irreplaceability begins, not with external achievements, but with inner mastery. Once the foundation is strong, everything built on it becomes powerful. Your skills become sharper. Your mindset becomes stronger. Your future becomes clearer. You step into rooms differently. You carry yourself with quiet confidence. You rise not because of luck, but because of alignment. And as this internal transformation continues, you start realizing something profound. The version of you that once settled for less is gone. You are no longer the person who doubted your abilities, who avoided challenges, who feared failure, who waited for the perfect moment. You have replaced hesitation with intention, confusion with clarity, distraction with discipline, and limitation with growth. This is the beginning of your evolution into a person who is not just valuable, but irreplaceable. In every generation, there is one pattern that separates extraordinary performers from everyone else. They don't rely on a single talent. They build combinations of skills that multiply their value. The average person tries to become great at one thing, but the people who stand out, the people who rise to the top of organizations, who create opportunities, who become respected voices, who shape the future, develop a unique stack of skills that no one else has in the same blend. This combination becomes their competitive advantage, their signature, their personal brand, and ultimately, the reason they become irreplaceable. The truth is, you don't need to be the best in the world at any one skill. You simply need to be very good at several skills that complement each other. When those skills merge, they create a level of value that becomes rare. Most people underestimate how powerful a well-built skill stack can be. They think greatness comes from one breakthrough gift, one talent, one big opportunity. But in reality, greatness comes from layers, each skill adding dimension, strength, and depth to who you are. Skill stacking transforms you from someone who can be replaced into someone whose contribution becomes uniquely valuable. It gives you a distinct identity in a world where most people blend into the crowd. Employers notice it, clients recognize it, colleagues feel it, friends respect it, and the world rewards it. The first part of building your skill stack is self-awareness. You begin by understanding your natural inclinations, what you do well, what comes to you intuitively, what energizes you. Your natural strengths don't need to be dramatic. Even something simple like being patient, being observant, communicating clearly, thinking calmly, or learning quickly can form the foundation of a powerful stack. You don't force skills that don't fit you. You build around the gifts you already possess, then add layers that amplify them. Once you know your strengths, you begin developing complementary skills. A person who is thoughtful becomes far more valuable when they learn communication. A disciplined person becomes unstoppable when they add strategic thinking. A creative person becomes rare when they add structure and planning. A technically skilled person becomes a leader when they learn how to influence others. These combinations make you multidimensional. And in a world where most people are one-dimensional, multidimensional individuals rise effortlessly. Skill stacking also requires you to learn faster than the average person. Not because you are trying to impress anyone, but because you understand that each new skill expands your opportunities. When you learn something new, your mind doesn't just add information. It expands its ability to think, solve problems, and connect ideas. With every skill, you become more adaptable, more resourceful, and more capable of navigating uncertainty. Instead of being limited to one path, you open multiple paths for growth. When you combine adaptability with discipline, you become unstoppable. Discipline ensures you follow through. Adaptability ensures you evolve. Together, they create a mindset that transforms every challenge into an opportunity for growth. Leadership is yet another skill that amplifies your value. Leadership isn't about a title. It's about influence, responsibility, and clarity. True leaders guide without forcing, inspire without demanding, and elevate others without diminishing themselves. Even if you're not in a formal leadership role, the ability to take initiative, to own your responsibilities, to support those around you, and to make decisions with confidence sets you apart immediately. People naturally gravitate toward someone who leads with strength and humility. Time management is another underestimated skill that dramatically increases your value. The ability to prioritize, organize, and execute tasks effectively ensures you consistently produce high-quality results. People who manage their time well deliver on their promises. They meet deadlines. They avoid chaos. They perform with clarity and calmness. In every environment, whether personal or professional, people with strong time management skills rise quickly. Once you begin building your skill stack, something powerful happens. Opportunities start seeking you instead of the other way around. People notice your reliability, your competence, your communication, your emotional stability, and your problem-solving approach. You stop being someone who needs to be pushed. You become someone people depend on, someone they trust, someone who can carry weight without collapsing. You become the person who elevates everything you touch. As your skill stack strengthens, your confidence grows. Not the loud, shallow confidence built on ego, but the quiet, grounded confidence built on competence. When you know you can handle challenges, communicate effectively, manage your emotions, learn quickly, and solve problems, you no longer fear uncertainty. Your confidence comes from your capability, and capability is the most powerful form of self-assurance. Skill stacking also protects you. It makes you resilient in times of change. If one opportunity closes, your skill set helps you create another. If the market shifts, your adaptability keeps you relevant. If challenges arise, your problem-solving ability navigates them. When you are skilled in multiple areas, no circumstance can trap you because you always have another way forward. One of the most powerful skills you can add to your stack is communication. No matter your field, the ability to express your ideas clearly, confidently, and persuasively multiplies your value. Good communication turns intelligence into influence. It turns ideas into action. It turns potential into opportunity. People trust those who communicate well. They listen to them, follow them, and rely on them. Communication alone can raise your value beyond anything you imagined. Another essential layer is problem solving. The world doesn't reward people who point out problems. It rewards people who solve them. When you develop the ability to break down complex issues, understand the root cause, and create practical solutions, you instantly become indispensable. Problem solvers are rare. They remain calm in chaos. They think clearly under pressure. They bring clarity to confusion. Even if someone else has more knowledge, the one who solves problems becomes more valuable. Then comes emotional intelligence, the ability to understand your emotions and the emotions of others. People who lack emotional intelligence make poor decisions under stress, react impulsively, and create unnecessary conflict. But those who understand emotions, manage them, and navigate them thoughtfully become powerful assets. They build trust quickly, they communicate effectively, they lead with empathy, they stabilize environments that are falling apart. Emotional intelligence makes you approachable yet respected, calm yet assertive, friendly yet strong. Another critical skill is adaptability. The world changes quickly, and those who cling to old systems fall behind. But the adaptable individual, the one who learns new tools, embraces new methods, adjusts to new environments, and stays open to new ideas becomes increasingly valuable. Adaptability turns you into the kind of person who thrives in any condition. It makes you future-proof. Perhaps the most important part of skill stacking is that it compounds. With every new skill you add, the value of your existing skills increases. Communication makes your technical skills more valuable. Emotional intelligence makes your leadership more effective. Discipline makes your creativity powerful. Strategy makes your discipline purposeful. One skill strengthens the others, and collectively, they transform you. And as this transformation deepens, you begin to notice something remarkable. You no longer think the way you once did. You no longer fear what you once feared. You no longer hesitate the way you once hesitated. You no longer shrink the way you once shrank. You begin to operate at a level where your presence commands respect, not through force, but through the strength of who you've become. This is the power of stacking skills. It turns an ordinary person into an extraordinary one. It turns potential into performance. It turns talent into mastery. It turns you into someone others admire, learn from, and depend on. Skill stacking doesn't just make you better, it makes you different. And in a world full of similarity, difference is the foundation of value. By choosing to continuously learn, refine, and expand your capabilities, you take control of your destiny. You stop waiting for opportunities to appear. You begin creating them. You stop asking for permission. You start building your own direction. You stop comparing yourself to others. You start comparing yourself to who you were yesterday. Slowly, quietly, and steadily, you evolve into someone rare, someone whose capabilities cannot be easily replicated, someone whose value cannot be matched, someone whose contribution cannot be replaced. This is how you rise. This is how you stand out. This is how you become an irreplaceable asset. There comes a point in every transformation when you must confront the silent battles inside you. The battles no one sees, the ones that determine whether you rise or remain the same. These battles are not fought in public. They're fought in the privacy of your thoughts, in the moments of hesitation, in the quiet decisions that shape the direction of your life. What separates those who evolve from those who stay stagnant is not luck or talent, but the willingness to face these inner struggles with honesty and courage. The first of these battles is the battle against comfort. Comfort feels safe, familiar, predictable. It gives you a sense of temporary peace, but it quietly steals your potential. It keeps you from stretching your abilities, from learning new skills, from stepping into challenges that would reveal your strength. Comfort whispers that you can try tomorrow, that you can avoid discomfort, that you don't need to push yourself today. But the people who become irreplaceable understand the danger of comfort. They know that everything they want lies on the other side of discomfort, and they choose growth even when it feels uncomfortable, uncertain, or intimidating. The second battle is against self-doubt. Doubt is subtle. It arrives disguised as caution, logic, or humility, but its real purpose is to limit you. It tells you that you're not ready, not good enough, not experienced enough. It magnifies your flaws and minimizes your strengths. It convinces you that other people are smarter, more capable, more prepared. But the truth is, doubt is just a voice, one that loses its power the moment you stop believing it. Confidence doesn't come from eliminating doubt. It comes from acting in spite of it. Each time you choose action over hesitation, doubt weakens. Each time you trust your ability to learn, grow, and adapt, doubt fades. Confidence is not something you wait for. It's something you build. Another silent battle is the battle against procrastination. Procrastination isn't laziness. It's fear disguised as delay. It's the fear of failure, the fear of imperfection, the fear of not meeting expectations. It tricks you into waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect mood, the perfect level of motivation. But perfect moments don't create success. Consistent moments do. Small, imperfect steps taken repeatedly achieve more than grand intentions left unfinished. The people who grow are not those who wait for inspiration. They are those who act with discipline, even when motivation is low. They know that momentum is created, not discovered. Then there is the battle against comparison. In a world filled with constant noise, it's easy to measure your life against someone else's highlight reel. You see their progress, their achievements, their confidence, their success, and you begin to wonder if you're behind. But comparison blinds you to your unique path. You forget that success is not a race. It's a personal journey shaped by your strengths, your timing, and your experiences. The moment you stop comparing yourself to others and start comparing yourself to who you were yesterday, you reclaim your power. Growth becomes personal. Progress becomes yours, and the pressure to match someone else's life fades into clarity about your own. The next battle is the battle against old identity. Your past self, your old habits, your outdated beliefs, they all try to pull you back toward who you used to be. They remind you of your past failures, your old patterns, your former limitations. They resist change because change threatens familiarity. But transformation requires you to let go of the version of you that no longer aligns with the future you want. You cannot grow while clinging to the identity that kept you where you are. Real change happens when you decide that the person you are becoming is more important than the person you have been. Perhaps the most challenging battle is the battle against inconsistency. Anyone can be great for a day. Anyone can feel motivated for a moment. But only a few remain committed long enough to create real change. Consistency is not about perfection. It's about showing up even when you don't want to. It's about honoring your goals on days when you feel weak, tired, doubtful, or distracted. Consistency is built in the quiet hours when no one is watching. It's the discipline to keep your promises to yourself. And the more consistent you become, the more unstoppable you feel. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to respect yourself. You begin to believe in your ability to follow through. As you fight these inner battles, something powerful begins to shift within you. Responsibilities no longer scare you. Challenges no longer overwhelm you. You stop running from opportunities because you no longer fear the weight that comes with growth. You begin to see discipline as a form of self-love, not a form of punishment. You start valuing long-term gain over short-term pleasure. You begin building a future that reflects your potential rather than your fears. And as your inner world strengthens, your outer world starts to transform. You think differently. You speak differently. You make decisions with clarity instead of confusion. You start spending your time wisely, valuing your energy, protecting your focus. You begin choosing environments that elevate you instead of environments that drain you. You create distance from chaos, negativity, and distraction. You align yourself with people who inspire growth instead of people who normalize stagnation. Slowly, you start noticing a quiet shift in how others respond to you. They see your discipline. They feel your focus. They recognize your growth. They notice the maturity in your decisions, the strength in your presence, and the confidence in your actions. Even if they don't say it out loud, they respect the evolution they see in you. Your mindset becomes sharper. Your self-control becomes stronger. Your identity becomes clearer. Your habits become more powerful. And with each step, you move closer to the version of yourself who is not just improving, but becoming exceptional. This is the stage where transformation becomes identity, where growth becomes natural, where discipline becomes instinct, where confidence becomes your normal state, where you realize that the person you are becoming is someone you once wished you could be. You begin to understand that irreplaceability is not about being perfect. It's about being consistent, committed, adaptable, and resilient. It's about developing the mindset and habits that separate you from the crowd. It's about becoming someone the world can trust, someone people can rely on, someone whose value is undeniable. And as this new identity takes shape, you step into a life where you no longer fear challenges. You seek them. You no longer shrink under pressure. You rise. You no longer wait for opportunity. You create it. You no longer drift. You lead yourself with purpose. This is where the real transformation begins to accelerate. This is where the old you fades and the new you emerges. This is where you begin becoming truly irreplaceable. The people who rise above the noise, the pressure, and the expectations are not the ones who never feel overwhelmed. They are the ones who learn how to guide their energy instead of allowing it to scatter. Overthinking often convinces you that you are being productive when in reality you are simply exhausting your emotional capacity. Your mind runs in circles, replaying possibilities that will never happen and rehearsing conversations that will never exist. But when you finally shift from mental noise to intentional direction, you begin to see a version of yourself that was always there, silent, capable, and waiting to be activated. True self-control begins when you stop giving every passing thought the power to shape your reality. Not every idea deserves your attention. Not every worry deserves your emotional investment. You must decide which thoughts earn the right to stay, because your inner world is a limited space and your energy is a limited resource. If you fill both with fear, doubt, and pressure, you leave no room for clarity or confidence to grow. But the moment you begin to filter your mind with purpose, everything changes. Life feels lighter, not because the challenges disappear, but because you finally understand your ability to influence how you respond. Clarity grows when you focus on what you can actually control. You can't control who misunderstands you, but you can control the honesty of your intentions. You can't control the complexity of the world, but you can control the simplicity of your daily habits. You can't rewrite yesterday, but you can rewrite the meaning you give it. The USA audience you're speaking to lives in a culture of constant urgency, always working, always upgrading, always comparing. And in that environment, the real strength is not the loudness of your ambition, but the discipline to quiet your mind and choose deliberately. Every meaningful transformation begins with a single decision: to stop letting your mind run on autopilot. When you don't direct your thoughts, they drift toward fear by default. They attach to the worst-case scenario because the mind is wired for survival, not success. So you must train it, patiently, repeatedly, consistently. You teach yourself which thoughts to entertain and which to release. You teach yourself how to breathe before reacting, how to analyze before assuming, and how to move with intention instead of pressure. And slowly, something incredible happens. The noise inside you begins to fade. You start to trust your decisions more instead of second-guessing every step. You speak with clarity because your thoughts are clear. You take action without waiting for the illusion of perfect timing. You stop apologizing for your potential. You stop shrinking your energy to match environments that don't understand your vision. You stop breaking yourself apart just to make others comfortable. When your thoughts align with your values, you develop an inner stability that no criticism, delay, or setback can shake. The world becomes less stressful because you are no longer fighting yourself. You create momentum because your mind is no longer scattered. You create progress because you are no longer controlled by fear. And the life you once believed was out of reach slowly becomes the life you are actively building. There comes a moment in every person's journey when they realize that their greatest limitation was never a lack of opportunity, but a lack of internal permission. You hesitate not because you are incapable, but because you have unconsciously taught yourself to request approval for every move you make. You wait for reassurance, for validation, for someone to confirm that your decisions are safe and acceptable. But growth does not happen in the comfort of certainty. It happens when you finally give yourself the authority to act, to try, to change, and even to fail without letting failure define you. Overthinking thrives in the space where confidence should live. When you allow doubt to narrate your actions, it convinces you that every step must be analyzed, every possibility must be predicted. This mindset tricks you into believing that thinking more leads to better outcomes. But the reality is simple. Clarity doesn't come from thinking endlessly. It comes from taking the first step and adjusting as you go. The mind becomes sharper when it engages with real experience, not imagined disaster. People in high-performance cultures, like much of the USA audience, often experience a silent pressure to always be achieving something. This pressure creates a cycle where you feel guilty for resting, anxious when waiting, and overwhelmed when acting. Breaking that cycle requires a shift in identity. You must begin to see yourself as someone who deserves progress, not someone who must earn the right to grow through constant stress. Your value is not measured by exhaustion. Your worth is not proven by burnout. Every time you choose a calm response over a reactive one, you reclaim control from the noise. Every time you choose patience over panic, you strengthen your emotional backbone. Every time you let go of a thought that does not serve your purpose, you make space for a better one to guide your actions. This is how mental discipline is built, not through sudden transformation, but through consistent choices that slowly reshape the way you think. As your discipline grows, you become someone who no longer chases clarity, you create it. You no longer wait for the perfect moment, you build it. You no longer depend on external motivation, you generate your own. And this shift is powerful because it frees you from the limitation of circumstances. When your internal world becomes stable, the outside world loses its ability to control your direction. There is a certain calm confidence that develops when your thoughts stop attacking you. You start to believe in possibilities you once called unrealistic. You start to see opportunities in places where you once saw risk. You start to act with a sense of direction instead of desperation. And because your mind is no longer clouded by noise, your decisions become sharper, your habits become cleaner, and your future becomes clearer. This is the beginning of true inner leadership. When you no longer let fear decide for you, when you no longer let stress define you. and when you no longer let overthinking steal the life you are meant to live. You become the kind of person who moves with intention, speaks with clarity, and acts with purpose. And once that transformation begins, nothing can stop it. There is a point in personal growth when you start to realize that peace is not something you stumble into. It is something you choose, protect, and reinforce every day. The world around you might stay chaotic, loud, and demanding, but your internal world doesn't have to follow the same pattern. You begin to understand that not every situation deserves your reaction, not every comment deserves your explanation, and not every moment deserves your immediate energy. When you learn to filter your responses, you reclaim a power that overthinking has taken from you for years. People often believe they are stressed because life is difficult, but many times they are stressed because their mind is untrained. An undisciplined mind jumps from problem to problem, magnifying everything it touches. It creates tension where none exists and imagines consequences that will never unfold. But a trained mind responds differently. It slows down when panic rises. It questions fear before accepting it. It evaluates challenges with logic instead of emotion. This difference in mental approach can completely change the direction of your life. In the USA's fast-paced culture, individuals are constantly told to pursue more success, more productivity, more results. But when more becomes the standard, you eventually lose connection with what actually matters. You start to measure your value through output, forgetting that human identity is deeper than achievements. Choosing peace is not weakness, it is strength. It is the ability to step back and say, I refuse to let noise distract me from who I am becoming. That decision alone separates growth-driven individuals from those trapped in cycles of overwhelm. As you strengthen your internal discipline, you begin noticing patterns you once ignored. You start seeing which environments drain your clarity and which people amplify your anxiety. You recognize how certain habits fuel your overthinking and how others support your calm. This awareness is powerful because it gives you the ability to redesign your life, not react to it. You adjust your boundaries. You update your priorities. You replace old behaviors with new ones that lead you towards stability instead of stress. Slowly, you master the art of inner stillness. It doesn't mean you avoid challenges. It means you handle them differently. You become someone who moves with quiet confidence rather than frantic urgency. You think clearly even in situations that once overwhelmed you. You stop chasing approval because you finally understand your own direction. You stop seeking shortcuts because you trust your consistency. And most importantly, you stop apologizing for choosing mental clarity over emotional chaos. This version of you begins to attract better experiences. You draw in people who respect your boundaries, opportunities that match your growth, and environments that support your purpose. Because when your mind becomes aligned, your entire life begins to align with it. Confidence grows. Patience grows, wisdom grows, and every step forward carries the weight of intention. What once felt impossible now feels attainable, not because life became easier, but because you became stronger. You realize that the real victory isn't in avoiding overthinking. There comes a stage in your transformation when you begin to recognize the difference between a life built by pressure and a life built by purpose. Pressure pushes you to react, to rush, to compete with timelines and expectations that were never meant for you. Purpose, on the other hand, guides you to act with intention. It allows you to move at a pace that supports your growth rather than destroys your peace. When you finally make this shift, You stop measuring your progress based on what others are doing and start measuring it based on who you are becoming. Most people don't realize that their overthinking is not just a habit, it's a learned survival mechanism. You spent years teaching your brain to scan for danger, to predict every possible outcome, and to protect you from embarrassment, rejection, or failure. But what once kept you safe is now holding you back. The mind is powerful, but it can only follow the instructions you've given it. If you've trained it to fear, it will fear. If you've trained it to overanalyze, it will overanalyze. But the same brain can be trained to focus, to trust, and to move forward with clarity. That shift begins the moment you stop accepting every thought as truth. In a society that glorifies constant stimulation, notifications, comparisons, updates, and endless noise, your ability to slow down becomes your greatest competitive edge. When you create space for silence, you create space for insight. When you step back from mental clutter, you begin to hear your own voice again. And when your mind is quiet enough to listen, it tells you what you've been avoiding. You have everything you need to begin, but you've been waiting for permission that you never needed in the first place. This realization changes the way you view your challenges. Instead of seeing them as threats, you begin seeing them as training grounds. Each moment of uncertainty becomes an opportunity to strengthen your calm. Each difficult conversation becomes a chance to practice emotional maturity. Each delay becomes a lesson in patience. This perspective is what separates those who grow from those who remain stuck in cycles of fear. As you develop mental discipline, you also develop emotional independence. You stop relying on other people to stabilize your mood. You stop depending on external achievements to feel valuable. You stop allowing the opinions of strangers or even the expectations of family to dictate your self-worth. This level of independence doesn't make you cold. It makes you grounded. It makes you someone who knows how to stand firm even when life shakes the foundation beneath you. The more your inner world strengthens, the more your outer life begins to adjust. You start choosing your commitments more carefully. You prioritize people who bring clarity instead of confusion. You set boundaries that reflect your new standards, and slowly, the world around you begins to match the person you are becoming within. This alignment brings a sense of stability that overthinking could never provide. You start waking up with a clearer mind, not because challenges no longer exist, but because you finally trust yourself to handle whatever comes. You start making decisions without rehearsing every possible failure. You take action without waiting for perfect certainty. You begin living instead of merely analyzing life from the sidelines. This is the beauty of inner transformation. Once you learn to master your mind, the entire direction of your life begins to shift. And what once felt heavy, complicated, and overwhelming becomes manageable, even meaningful. Because you are no longer reacting to life, you are leading it with intention. There comes a moment in the growth journey when you begin to understand something powerful. Your life is shaped far more by your inner patterns than by your outer circumstances. People often wait for life to become easier, calmer, or more predictable before they give themselves permission to change. But transformation doesn't begin when conditions are perfect. It begins when you take control of the one thing that has always been yours, your mindset. When you live in a state of constant mental tension, even simple decisions feel heavy. You overthink conversations that lasted minutes and carry the weight of mistakes that happened years ago. Your mind becomes a loop, repeating fears, doubts, and worst-case scenarios until they begin to feel like truth. But once you realize that these loops are not reality, only reflections of your internal conditioning, you gain the ability to interrupt them. You start to question the narrative your mind has been feeding you. You stop accepting fear as fact. The American lifestyle often pushes people to operate at maximum capacity, working longer hours, juggling responsibilities, chasing goals, and constantly striving for more. But the truth is, mental overload doesn't produce better results. It produces burnout. Real strength comes not from speed, but from direction. Not from pressure, but from clarity. Not from constant effort, but from consistent, intentional action. When you slow down your thoughts, you sharpen your decisions. When you quiet your mind, you strengthen your intuition. Overthinking convinces you that you are being careful, but what you're actually doing is avoiding trust. Trust in your judgment, trust in your experience, trust in your ability to handle the unexpected. The most successful people aren't those who have perfect certainty. They are the ones who act despite uncertainty. They understand that clarity grows through movement, not stagnation. Every action teaches you something, and every lesson brings you closer to the person you're meant to become. At some point, you must stop replaying the what-ifs and start living the even-ifs. Even if things don't go perfectly, you will learn. Even if people misunderstand you, you will grow. Even if the path isn't smooth, you will adapt. This mindset frees you from the prison of hesitation. It gives you permission to experience life instead of analyzing it to death. And in that freedom, you rediscover the parts of yourself that overthinking buried. Your courage, your creativity, your curiosity, your drive. You begin to move differently. Instead of rushing, you pace yourself. Instead of doubting your instincts, you honor them. Instead of getting overwhelmed by what could go wrong, you focus on what could go right. This shift changes the quality of your actions. It brings a sense of calm to your decisions and a sense of purpose to your days. Slowly, you build a level of inner confidence that doesn't depend on applause, comparison, or validation. You become someone who doesn't panic when things shift because you trust your ability to adjust. You become someone who chooses logic over anxiety, perspective over pressure, action over paralysis. And with each step, you move closer to the life that once felt out of reach. Not because the world changed, but because you did. The real transformation happens when you understand that your mind is not your enemy. It is your most powerful tool. But like any tool, it requires discipline, training, and intention. When you learn to guide your thoughts instead of being dragged by them, everything in your life begins to align with clarity, stability, and purpose.